Yep. Thank you. Hi. Okay, call the meeting to order. And I'm just pulling up the agenda here. So first thing is the minutes. Okay, so let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. So as we get started, let's approve minutes from our last meeting, which was last Wednesday. Did those go out? Last Sunday. Wednesday was our the wage matrix, which we did not. That was not our meeting. Yep, because I just said that's not our meeting, so we do not have the minutes for that, but we have the minutes from last Sunday. Yep, and those went out. Everybody have a chance to review them? Any changes? How about any motions? Okay, move to accept. Second. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? No? Okay. Moving on. Old business? Anything that anyone wants to bring up? Old business? No?
I just want to make, I haven't gotten, we talked about getting the underlying research.
From the wage matrix?
Yeah, so I just hadn't gotten it yet, so that.
Okay, it's only been a couple of days, so we had that meeting on Wednesday.
Yes. So.
Paula and Stacy, you want to give
It's not that I'm impatient or anything, I want to make sure that I.
Nope, you haven't got it.
Okay, thank you.
Were we thinking about adding meetings to December at all? Has that gone anywhere?
Not that I know of. We do have a scheduled meeting mid-December, but probably at the end of tonight we'll know a little bit better about if we need anything else. So we can have that discussion at the end tonight. Anything else? No? Okay. All right, so we can move on to our departments. So we'll start with trustee of the trust funds. That one was pushed from the last meeting. It's on its way down. Okay, so let's go to the next one. Next one was budget committee is in there. And also, do we have, yep, we do have a select board members here. All right, so budget committee, our budget is as close to level funded as we can be. One of the changes, oh, I don't know what the number is. I was just doing it off the top of my head. We're so small, we get kind of lost in there. 4158. There we are. So as you can see, proposed budget went down. Why did it go down 50 cents? Oh, the salary COLA went down a little bit. I'm like, how do we do 50 cents? So everything is pretty much the same. We're level funded. The only thing that I did do was I just moved $100 from meals and miles into seminars, because this year there were a few of us who wanted to do the training through the state, and I think that's really beneficial. probably more so than having a fancier dinner to thank everybody. So I just moved $100 to keep it level. The salaries, just to kind of go over where that is, that's for the recording secretary. Any questions on budget committee? Any suggestions? Okay, all right, that one's pretty straightforward. And then, do we have anyone else before select board? Yep, the ZBA is the other one. There's my agenda. Okay, so we have the zoning board of appeals. We'll do that one. Yeah, zoning board. All right, so you can give us a presentation.
No presentation.
Okay.
You can, if you put it up there, or you have it in front of you. The biggest item, obviously, is salaries. And this is our first year having a salary line. We've had a salary line before and never used it because the selectmen always covered it. Before Robin started, we had Susan Ayer working of long hours and doing the minutes and attending meetings and doing that. But Robin has also been in the office. This is her position as zoning and planning administrator. And so she's been dealing with people coming in who don't know how to file for an appeal, of any kind, special exception or variance, and been working with them. And then she's been doing obviously the minutes and attending meetings. So the budget that we had assigned for 2023 was based on the estimate of what was expected for the zoning board to use, even though we had no reference numbers. So it was a sort of a ballpark figure. You can see that we've already exceeded that, and you'll still have a meeting in December that we have to do, and some other hours that she's been putting in with the applicant for December. What's interesting is that the position was funded at the same levels, I believe, when the number of hours is when Ellen was there for just the planning board. So that 2,600 additional really didn't cover the additional workload. So Robin has been tracking all her hours with Paula, and I guess Paula can explain how that's been working as far as office hours versus hours put in overtime to do minutes or whatever, in addition to planning board duties. So, but the $3,500 proposed amount is based on projecting the current rate through a 12-month period in 2024. So, and it's even marginal at that. If we continued on at the current rate, we would probably need more. The other thing is that Robin, I don't think she started, at least for the zoning board, at the beginning of the year. No, she started in, was it March?
I can't remember.
Yeah, so
it was a few months in.
Yeah, so so that $27.95 so far, if that's through October, doesn't represent a full year. So I think that we can, as things get more efficient, and we've changed a lot of the procedures, as Rick knows, as far as outlining all the things that people have to do. And Robin did a lot of work in creating a new application form that explains to applicants, if they don't have an attorney, what they need to do to fill out an application for a variance or special exception. So I'm thinking that after this first year, things will get a little more efficient, as she knows all the all the multitude of regulations in and out of the town regulations and zoning procedures and things like that. So we're hoping that $3,500 covers it. But that's the reason for that amount, and we don't have the luxury of saying, well, you'll have to wait till next year to file your appeal because we've gone through our budget. So we do need to make an effort at coming up with a realistic number. The other thing is, you'll notice down there, there's some reductions. One of the ones was in training. We have pretty much a full new board starting last year, and we had budgeted extra amount for training. And we discovered the state had, as part of their legislative action to try to make training mandatory for zoning and planning board members, they didn't actually enact that, but they did make it free. That OPD, Office of Planning and Development, produced free training, so that we were able to take advantage of that, and all the new members and the older members were able to take advantage of that training. So we did not use that training budget, and so that's why there's a reduction in the amount for that. The books are a fixed amount. They're just you multiply $8.50 times the number of people on the board. So we don't have any control over that. The $50 supplies, I believe that right now, because the office moved downstairs, they're sharing supplies with the select board is paying for that, and I think the select board was anxious to make sure that, since they have to plus their budget up for the supplies, that we take that out. So I'm thinking that you may want to zero out the supplies line on that one. That's something I just happened to hear when I was listening to the select board meeting regarding the budget. You know, that's not a big amount. They're $50, and we didn't ever use it. So legal ads is, fortunately, there's an amount in there because it's going to be needed to cover the overage of the budget of the salary. But legal ads are an amount that we put in and estimate how much we're going to use. And it wasn't far off, but that's all paid for by the applicants. So it's not a town expense item, but because we're have to raise an appropriate, to expend, it has to be in the line, in that line item. So I don't think that will exceed 1,500. But I guess that's pretty much it. And if you have questions, and I know it's not a big department as far as budget goes, but it's kind of not an optional one as far as getting the job done.
Open it up to questions.
So, when the applicants pay for those advertisements, the legal ads, do you know where that money gets put?
I believe that all goes into the general fund, and it gets paid out of there. So the town pays, selects its budget, or it just pays out of the general fund for the ads. So that, yeah, those funds go into the general fund.
So
as do the application fees and things. We don't have an income line because that goes, all the monies we collect go to the general fund, with the exception of the escrow accounts, obviously.
Okay, thank you.
What happens is, when Robin gets an application, she has a check with it, but she has to bring cash to the registry, so we do it through petty cash. So we cash the check, we give her the cash, and she goes. And so it's in one of the department revenue lines.
Yeah, actually, I think when she goes to the registry, that's mostly planning board.
Oh,
I don't think we register anything. Glenn, you probably could answer that one better. All of the items that go to the registry come from planning board, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's paid for by the applicant.
Yeah, but the zoning is the same way, like, they'll get the check and we'll put it in.
Right, yeah.
And then, so it's under the department revenue
Right.
for zoning.
So if you were to look at revenue sheets for any of these departments, you should see offsetting revenue for that legal line in both planning board and ZBA.
Yeah. So I just looked, and I don't know what you want, she has worked almost 109 hours for ZBA this year, so far from March till now. So if you did, 200 hours, it would be 5,200. I don't know how many hours she would work if she did it for a full year. Because she really only,
March from now is 2/3 of the year, it's 8 months.
yeah,
Take 109 and divide it by 2, and add on 55 hours, 160 hours maybe.
she's 26. So it would be 4,160. If she worked 160 hours for a year.
But do you think her hours will decrease this coming year?
I wish I could have a crystal ball. I really don't know.
Right.
Generally, over the last year or so, we've seen an increase in applications for big projects that,
Right, but all things being equal, she's far more familiar this year going forward.
right,
So-
that is true, and we are going to make a very hard effort at keeping our meetings on track. We've already told them we have a 10 o'clock deadline, so, but is to get things done
Right.
expeditiously. But some of the big projects, we have to be fair to the applicant and give them opportunities to present everything.
We're gonna have to talk less.
Yeah.
The minutes stuff.
So when we talked with the planning board, there was a great presentation, and it showed the numbers of applicants compared to local towns, and that the number of projects in Kingston is really high. And then the other thing that caught my attention was the number of accessory dwellings. Do those all have to go before the zoning, and is that?
No, that's a change. The ADUs all go to the planning board now.
Okay.
It used to go to the
That's not
zoning board.
increasing. I was just wondering if there was gonna be another increase to your hours, of it, is the salary gonna be enough?
No, I think Paul's made a good point about extrapolating the annual cost, because we weren't doing January, February, and March. I think it didn't start until after town meeting that we started with Robin. So, but that ADUs aren't. However, additional projects coming forward that are either in the Aquifer Protection District and not specifically permitted, or in all the different zoning districts, shoreline protection, wetlands, things like that, where they need to get a variance. Those will have to come before the ZBA, so that we know that there's some either coming in or coming back. And unfortunately, those are not, 15 minutes and rubber stamping, a 2-foot adjustment, to a property setback. So I wish I could predict it. I don't think it's going to drop down. We won't have as much work doing addenda to our procedures, because I think we've got those pretty well nailed down, and I can write anything that comes from the legislature that makes us needed to change our procedures. I can handle that and just send it in, and we vote on it and stuff. But I think using the number that Paula came up with is good. Again, I don't want to be in a situation where we're, on our hands and knees to the select board saying, we can't have a November and December meeting because we spent our budget. So, and obviously that's not an option for us. So, they'd be in a position of having to find money to cover that.
Well, she worked, if you annualize the hours that she worked for 8 months and use that $23, it comes up to $3,800.
She gets 26, she's $27 an hour.
So you're saying it's 27?
She makes,
And I think last year's, the $2,600 was based on $23 an hour, and that's the other factor that goes in here. That's when that position was put up there, that was the expected salary, and so I don't think we made the adjustment for that.
So to cut to the chase, are we talking about raising it to 4,200 or we can leave it 35?
It should be 45 or 5.
$4,500.
Yeah.
Okay, is that what you're suggesting?
I agree with the math. What's that?
It is math.
It is math. Agreeing with math is kind of an oxymoron, but I believe you've and Paula both done the numbers, and in fact, I think based on the 8 months.
Your analysis of the unknown sounds reasonable, so it should be at least 4,500, if not 5,000.
Okay, so you're asking us to move that, amend that to 4,500, is that what you're saying?
Yes, I would appreciate that it's a whole lot easier to explain that we didn't have to expend it all than it is to come back and say we just didn't do the math right. So, yeah, I think 4,500 is probably that covered if it was
that'll cover 160 hours.
160 hours, and that would, and is that an additional 1 quarter over
Yeah,
the,
yeah.
okay, the 109?
She's worked 109 hours almost
Right, to date, and
today,
then we have,
from March till now. So
right,
you have another month,
and we have another month.
and then 2 months at the beginning of the year for next year. So you have to add 3 months.
She didn't work in January and February, right?
No, it was mid-March.
So she's worked 8 months.
Yeah, so,
So the 4,500 covers 12 months at the same.
okay.
Makes sense.
I just want to make sure I'm capturing this correctly. So we're moving the budget from 3,500 to 4,500. And then we adjust the COLA based on the new amount of hours proposed.
and that's the COLA 4%.
4%.
As an aside, I think that, I know I'm gonna have a hard time with the 4 because the Social Security went up 3.2, and I don't know how ethically we can say we're gonna give more than Social Security Administration is giving out to people to increase their Social Security, but, so, I mean, we'll have to have a discussion about that, whether or not it'll be something less than 4, or 4.
For now,
But-
it's
but
just
that's another-
for now, it's just the
Yeah, sure.
number in there that we haven't evaluated, so.
Right, we can have that discussion with the executive.
180.
Any other questions? Comments? All right, we're good? Thank you.
Press the button, green, so it's green. Okay, green. There you go.
Right off the bat, I'd like to increase the bookkeeping line item by $200, so it'd be $2,200. The bookkeeper does an outstanding job. He's worth a lot more. If we were to put this out to a private company, it'd probably be paying 10 times that amount. What's the format here? What am I supposed to be doing?
Tell us what the, any changes or any, what the numbers mean.
Which number specifically?
So contracted services went down by 50%.
Right. I don't know if you're all aware, the mowing and stuff is being done by the Department of Public Works now. It's in-house. We used to be out to a contractor, and Phil has determined that he's able to do most of it within the hours, the regular hours, so he doesn't have to have extra hours to do cemeteries. And the line item will include, we have other contracted service other than just the mowing. There's contracted, the website for cemetery find is, I think it's about $1,200. There's some other stuff, I'm trying to think what else comes out of that. But Phil wanted to change this to include some equipment, but he says the year-to-date for this year, there was a piece of equipment that he bought, and I guess there'll be more next year, but he feels that'll be enough, the $12,000 to cover what he needs.
So is that not contracted services, but purchasing a piece of equipment?
Yes. That's part of it. I'm not sure exactly the breakdown of what's gonna be equipment and what's gonna be contracted services at this point.
Can you explain what the improvement line is? It looks like we have a placeholder for the last 3 years that we haven't used.
Improvements. Yeah, that is for I know there's a separate one for stone repairs. I was gonna say stone repairs, but that's up there also. Yeah, we have used it in the past. I'm not obviously not lately. And I couldn't tell you exactly what the plan is for this year.
2019, we charged $435 to it.
Any example of what that might be for?
I know that to lay out a new area in the cemetery is, would be an improvement, and which we're gonna have to do soon. I'm not sure, it's really, you know, up to what Phil, you know, wants to do and when he wants to do it, you know, when he's able to do it. There is a new section of the cemetery needs to be laid out. I'm not sure if that would be included in that or not.
Is that at Greenwood?
Yeah.
Is that the same with the Millstream improvement? That's another line that doesn't seem like we've used the last few years.
Yeah, it would be similar type projects. With the Millstream, anything we spend at Millstream, we get reimbursed for, plus 10% from a separate trust fund that we don't manage. It's managed by the Bank of America. So the more money we spend there, the more money we make, within reason.
So have we expended money in that area in the last few years?
I don't know.
According to this, we haven't. I'm just curious. Is there another way it's coming in that we're not seeing?
Well,
What do you mean, is there another way to?
Well, you said we make money off of it. When have we made money and where is that money?
You gotta spend them, you gotta spend the money to make the money. In
We
other
get-
words, the Millstream is funded by a trust fund that the trustees don't even control over. We gotta budget the money to spend the money, and when we spend the money, we bill an outside bank and trustee and get the money back plus a management fee of 10%.
But when have we billed it? We haven't billed it in years, right? I mean,
right, but there's no harm in keeping it in the budget.
Well, except it has to be raised from the taxpayer.
It doesn't get billed out of the town budget, it's out of the trustees. So when I write checks for these things, I send a memo to the trustees and say, I need reimbursement for Millstream, for cemetery. That's usually done, the cemetery stuff's usually done at the end of the year, and they reimburse me for it. But the billing to the Bank of America thing goes not through the budget, doesn't go through the general fund.
So, here's the question. If these total expenses for Millstream are $6,000 or $7,000, will that be bigger than the total real estate tax levy?
Yeah.
So there's the rub. How much is it, Claudia?
Usually $4,000 to $5,000 for the year.
That's what I thought. Did you?
This is 9,000. The total. 7 feet Millstream line, $9,000. So.
Well, let me ask you this, Brad.
Yes.
So that being the case, why did we increase? I wasn't adding up the right column, Claudia, you're right. I was adding up the prior year. Why did we increase the budget for Millstream for? Because we spent $4,100, that's why, right? You increased it from 4,000 to 6,000 because there was 4,100 spent, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I think my confusion lies around the improvement lines though, so Paula, help me. So if we have a line item we're not using because of the process you described, so why do we have money?
Well, I know
budgeted in those two lines?
on Millstream improvements, they intend on using that for a new flagpole this year with a solar light, and we'll be able to shut off the electricity. We have an electric bill there solely to power a light on the flag, which we're going to get a solar thing and shut the electricity off and save $25 a month. is the plan.
The cemetery expenses are divided into thirds, and the regular cemetery fund is 2/3, and Mill Stream is 1/3, correct?
No, there's actually 4 cemeteries.
No, what I'm saying, so the entire cemetery expense is 2-to-1, correct? Or is it 3-to-1?
The roughly 25% goes for Mill Stream.
25%, so these expenses are representing more than that. The 6,000 versus the 12,000. If it's 3-to-1, then the 12,000 should ostensibly, I mean, if it's 12,000, Mill Stream ostensibly should only be 3,000, correct?
Those are 2 separate line items.
Right, I'm just going with the 3-to-1 ratio.
Okay,
If the 12,000 up here represents the expense for 3 cemeteries, Mill Stream being the 4th, so I'm sorry, so this
Right.
one should probably only be 4,000, correct?
I wasn't part of the preparing this budget, so to ask me to explain each number when I didn't prepare it, I wasn't notified that people were meeting to prepare it. Claudine, Paula, and Phil. And so to ask me what, any particular line item, what's planned, other than I had a meeting with Phil after the fact, you know, filled me on some of the stuff, but I was not notified that they were even doing that.
Well, Rick, you should take.
Pardon?
You should take solace in the fact there's gonna be a solar flagpole. Because let me tell you, as an Exxon shareholder, I wish it was powered by natural gas pipe from Louisiana. But the one thing that I would say is that the overall budget's down 28%.
Right.
So
But that's
I
due to
understand.
the changes on the contracted services of Phil doing the work through the highway department.
That's right.
So is the highway department also doing the contracted work for Mill Stream?
Yes.
Yes.
So why didn't that line item go down from previous years like the other contracted services?
So as somebody that's on the commission and in the dark about this, my guess is the answer to your there is an answer to your question. I don't know
Do we
what it is.
put all of the savings in the regular one so that we could bill out?
My guess is Phil has a plan, that there is an answer to your question. We just don't know what it is.
And I don't have it.
Yeah, I understand.
Other than somebody saw deep pockets that they wanted, you know, wanted to reach into.
Do all the cemeteries have flagpoles? That's kind of a standard rule or something. We can't hear you back there. The question was about, do all cemeteries have flagpoles? I don't know. They all have.
Currently, the Plains Cemetery does not. We have plans to put one up there also, as part of the, they're gonna revamp the entrance and put in a new well and some other stuff there.
Any other questions?
Can we have those 3 lines for consideration to discuss further, the 2 improvement and the maintenance? The separate maintenance?
Yep. Absolutely. We highlighted those.
I already added them.
Perfect. All right. Thank you. And now executive is up.
All right, so it's only up 73%. Welcome. So let's just jump right into it. The one line item that I just didn't quite understand, Paul, is on the salaries full-time line. It accounts for that 8.8%. I know there's how does that increase? Because COLAs are under a separate line. Is that due to some contractual increases? I know there's at least,
Performance,
okay,
and I had a contractual thing that.
in yours.
It started in March.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I could understand where those numbers came from. So can you slide that just a little bit so we can see that last percentage change column? Oh, all right. Correct. So we'll go down, anything that has a change we'll jump into if there's any line items that are the same that you want to touch on, but we have a lot that have changes. So the first one we have is just salaries under COLA. We've accounted for that 4% COLA in all departments, and that number comes up to 15.8%. That's seems foreign to me as well, why it would calculate like that.
It's based on the salaries that we have right now.
Okay.
Can we stop right there, because the 4%, I think we need to understand how that came to be, because across all the cost centers, it ends up being about $83,000 in COLA. So why 4? Why not?
So first of all, obviously the departments needed something to put in there. The reason for 4 is, I know you touched on the Social Security price index. Well, last year it was 8.7%, and the town went up 4%. The previous year to that, it was 5.9%. And obviously the provisions that we've been making with the Salary Wage Study Committee to try and move things along, we just felt that a good starting point. If the Budget Committee ends up not feeling comfortable with that and wants to change it, but we had to give the department some type of guidance to base that off of. So for us, it was looking at the labor market and those type of things, and then looking at the previous couple of years due to inflation and the Social Security index for the past couple of years. So let's see, classified ads, we reduced that by about $500. We weren't sending out as many classified ads as we need to. Books, we had a reduction in that. A lot of stuff now is electronic through the executive line. Computer maintenance, this is based off of a Block 5 contract that we have, so we're looking at an increase of about 11.5%, bringing it from 81,000 to 90,000 plus. This also includes about $8,500 in some upgraded equipment involving server switches, those type of things that impact security of our system for the town. Block 5 actually wanted them done last year, is my understanding, and due to some budget constraints, we put it off getting it done over this year. So we did not take that up, but it's part of a requirement of the contract that we need to upgrade that equipment for them to be able to fulfill their part of the contract. The next one down for computer software user fees. This is based off our QuickBooks yearly fee for the 2 users, and then the $6,120 from Records Force due to the cloud storage of all the documents. ARPA funding was used to host a lot of our information, or ARPA funds were used for the data conversions from paper files to electronic files, but now we have ongoing storage fees that are going to be associated with the maintenance of all those files now that they are electronic.
So I assume Paul is a user, right?
Yes, she is.
Who's the second user?
My assistant. I haven't gotten a second account yet, but I need one.
We were planning on using Marissa, who does the human services. She was going to be able to dedicate some hours to working in finance as well, but she is so busy with human services, we weren't able to allocate any of those hours for her to work over there.
I'm not concerned about, in other words, I think that's wise personnel decision. You're gonna pay for, she only works a day a week, right?
Yep.
So you're gonna pay a full license for an 8-hour-a-week employee?
Yep. You can only have 1 license per computer. You can't share licenses.
So that day, I see. So it's not as if she's doing a vacation or something. She's a separate person.
Yeah, we needed the redundancy because, I mean, heaven forbid something happens to Paula, or let's just say one day she up and quits. There has to be somebody that can get into the system to have another license.
And it's not secure.
If she quits, you can give her a license to someone else.
You can, but having access to the system until you hire them is...
She gave the answer. If you have 2 machines going at once, you need a second license, even if it's only for a day a week.
Yep. And she shouldn't be logging into my computer. So even if she was to fill in if I was away or something, she shouldn't be logging into my computer. So we need that second account. And there was never an assistant before, so.
So I'm clear, so the increase of the in salaries is from assistant, is that what you're saying? And on where it has salaries full-time?
Salaries full-time, that's based off of it still include that, so it looks like you calculated still in there the pay per performance in addition to any contractual obligations from it.
No, the salaries is our salaries
Salaries full-time, but it went up 8.8%.
because of pay for performance last year.
Yep.
And my contractual
Okay.
increase that, it was after I started working 6 months, I got an increase. So it's what the three of us are making right now times, no, actually, it's just the salary, what we're making right now.
So because your contract had a contractual increase built in, so now that there was that increase that happened, and now it's based off of the 4%.
That's why it's
pay
increased from
performance
last
with
year.
that.
Yep.
So,
It's not new pay for performance, it's the pay for performance from last year. That doesn't go into the salary line on the budget, it was in a different area, so now our salary is a set amount, we're all salary, so it's what our three salaries are.
okay, and so, but it sounds like,
Marissa is the line 10,000 under it.
okay, and that's, okay, and so all right, so the increase is for your salary, basically.
It's the three people that are listed here, their pay for performance from last year, and then a small increase that I got in March. Nope. Oh, and the COLA, no, yeah, the COLA from last year, it's our current salaries right now, is what that adds up to. What we're making right now, right this minute.
Okay, but obviously it's gonna be increased because there's 8.8% increase.
No, because we're salary, we're not hourly. So that won't be increased. What do you mean?
Well, we'll look cool.
Increased by 4130 dash S5, right? 230.
The new COLA,
Yeah. And then
Next
what
year.
about pay for performance?
there is no pay for performance.
Okay, so unless anything that we've gone through so far, the next change is under computer upgrades. So this was based on Block 5, who is our IT provider. They make recommendations for replacement of old computers and systems. So based off of this, they were advocating that we have, I believe, is it 2 or 3 machines? 2 or 3?
This is 3 machines that are all over 7 years old.
Okay, we had, under consulting and outside services, under shredding services, we had earmarked $1 from last year, and we're only asking for $500 this year, but we had previous years, there was $5,000, and that got overexpended in 2021 to the amount of $7,300. They budgeted $5,000 in 2022, so what are we planning on for shredding?
This is just consulting and outside services. We don't really have anything in there, so that's why we had brought it down to $1 in '23. But the DPW had a big shredding event for all departments this year, and so this is to keep up with our shredding, because we have to shred based on our retention policy. So it's to be able to shred the stuff that can be shredded this year.
Okay, so this is for planned shredding events for all the town departments?
Nope, just for the town hall.
Okay, just the town hall. All right, next line. This will be a big one. Contracted services. So previously, last year in the budget was $80,000. We've actually spent $87,066 year to date. Proposed for 2024 is $347,804.75. The reason for this is part of these contracted services is through Sanborn Head, who has been doing all the data collection for the homes that have been contaminated by PFAS. So apparently when this all came to fruition, I know it's shocking that the federal government and ultimately the state government provided us with something that was ultimately unsafe. So we have a bunch of wells in town in proximity to the fire station that have PFAS contamination. So the town was kind of in a holding pattern based off of legal advice to see what's happening. Well, finally stuff has happened in DES. We know the federal government firefighting foam, but guess what? Here, so you need to take care of it. So we were planning on moving forward with getting the point of entry treatment center. A grant that is, we're hoping is going to fully fund the contract for the first year of these services, which includes the installation of all the systems, which is very costly. So for this first year, we have a reimbursable grant that we have qualified for that Glenn spearheaded getting us accepted for. It's up to $2. So the two we were below that amount. We had to send them back out because the contracts did not meet DES requirements, so they had to send it back. So we're currently out to bid again. It needs to include scope of service and timelines. So the goal is this to be fully reimbursable by the grant, but we do have to appropriate for those funds to get reimbursed through the grant. So ultimately, at the end of the day, if you took out if you accounted for this $288,000 reimbursable grant and subtracted that from our budget, our total percentage increase that we're presenting to you tonight would not be 73.12%, but it would actually be 9.3%. So this grant reimbursement money that we need to appropriate for accounts for over 60%, over 60% of the percentage increase that you're seeing in the executive budget total.
What other bids do you have?
The two bids we had two bids, but since they went back, what's that?
The new bids. When are the new bids due back?
When did it close, Susan? Oh, they're not posted yet because we had to have DES review them to make sure that the bids came in compliant. But we're going to have to do a 14-day posting. We're hoping to have them reviewed by Sanborn Head and DES within a week of opening them, and then awarding them within a week after that. DES has the problem with the contracts that came in is they didn't include a timeline and list the scope of service appropriately, but it did meet all the requirements for the systems that would make them eligible for 100% reimbursement up to that amount. There is a little bit of hope that, so last year we had the $80,000 budget. We're hoping that some of these new items that are in here, some of the item that are in the new contract may be covered, so there may be a reduction. It just depends on implementation of this process. But this is one of those unfortunate things that even though we're eligible for grant reimbursement, we have to appropriate for the full amounts in order to be eligible.
And the way this was calculated is we took the highest bid, because we had, until we figure out which bid we're going with, which company, we took the highest bid and took all of the contingencies that they listed and stuck it in here for now until we get a final number.
So the goal is that once we have a final contract, if it's prior to the final submission of the budget, we could reduce the appropriated numbers for that line because we don't plan on spending beyond
That's why I asked the date.
the amount.
That's why I asked
Yep.
the date. Exactly.
So this line item has had funding in it for the last few years, and I know last year we talked a little bit about it. So with this amount, the grant doing what you're doing this year, then in the future, would that line item still be at $80,000, or would it?
No, there
Is
is
this a
going to be
long-term
ongoing costs for the POET installation systems. The town is still going to be on the hook for the replacement of the filters. And until we get the full executed contracts in front of us, I'm not sure which testing is covered by the grant and that we won't be paying for anymore versus, ongoing filter replacement costs. But the large portion of the system up front is some of the initial rounds of testing for the installation of the systems. Obviously the installation of the systems themselves, and then the testing to verify that the systems are treating properly. So that is the lion's share of the cost, but there absolutely will be ongoing requirements to replace the filters and maintain the systems every year that the town is responsible for to ensure clean drinking water for these homes.
Any other questions on this line item?
Like I said, this is the biggest one. I mean, that's the one that makes everyone nervous. So dues, that is going to be, last year we're looking for an increase from $6,500 to $7,200. Some of the dues that we have, that's going to be our NHMA dues to the New Hampshire Municipal Association. I can tell you it's an invaluable resource. We need to continue with it, and NHMA probably saves us a lot in our legal expense lines because we're able to run a lot of things through them, through all departments throughout the town. Equipment maintenance contract, we have an increase in copiers. Paula, do you want to speak to that one? Do you know some of the, I know you talked about, is that just the new contracts up, or why such a large increase for the copiers?
That's for our maintenance and for color copies. So that's just what it is. We pay for color copies.
And some of the things that we've done, as opposed to sending out to a company, like when the highway department, when they sent their flyers with the tax bills, instead of us contracting out to a company to print those, we're printing those in-house because we were able to do it for a substantial savings, printing it using our own maintenance and stuff through the copier lines.
It was half the price to print it here than to send it out.
Let's see, we have a couple just placeholder lines on equipment repairs, equipment supplies, forms and envelopes. We have an increase in that line because we've been trying to combine supplies, have town departments use it. So things like paper, envelopes, those types of basic supplies, we're budgeting it through our budget. So there should have been some reductions in some of the other departments that are using them here from us at the town hall. And legal ads, we had a reduction. We haven't had to do as many legal ads. Mileage and meals, that stayed the same. The next change, postage is, so same thing, we're pulling in some of the postage contracts from the other departments to bring it all under one account. We do have to buy a new postage meter as well, as ours is not going to be supported, so we have to buy a new one for that. So we're looking from taking postage from $13,000 to $15,000. Solid Waste Task Force operations budget, so there had been no budget there previously, and then so to date, so obviously instead of just spending it out of another line somewhere else, Solid Waste Task Force was kind of pulling out of different lines what wasn't really meant for that. So to date, we've spent $777.57 and do the recommendation of that committee. They had asked that we put in a $2,000, and that would be to help also offset cost of any flyers and data. They've set up stuff at elections to print out data and materials and have that stuff available for folks as part of the educational piece. And I assume they'll probably be printing out more as they continue to do the recycling stuff on the weekends, on certain weekends. See, supplies, again, this was just trying to combining supplies for human services, planning, select board, inspectors, and buying it all through one line item instead of having it scattered through the different department lines. Tax map updates, we do have so we're going from $3,000 to $5,000. We have a $2,000 contract with CAI Technologies and $3,000 for hosting. This is part of all the tax map updates and things going on the online system. So we have to now host a lot of that information in the cloud and through a hosting service.
So just to go back, Just to go back to the phones, so the phone line was increased to cover all the phones
Did I
in
miss?
all departments?
Did I? I don't think we got to phones yet,
Oh, okay.
but it's next.
we-
So, yeah, so block 5 for all phone and all departments. So we have Comcast, and part of a requirement of municipality is because since we're voice over IP connectivity for all the phone lines, we also have to have a backup internet service provider. So the town actually has Comcast as well as Consolidated Communications. So we took all those line costs from the different departments to move them under our line for the internet service provided phones. There's a couple outliers still, like cell phones are not covered under our thing. Individual departments account for their own cellular telephone service, and as well as I know like the PD still has a hard line for part of their CGIS requirements that they have to maintain.
All departments have their cell phones, and iPad, you know, all the phone services for that, and all their internet goes, so they all still have Comcast, all of them. But what happened is last year, well, right before I started, so I don't, mid-22 at some point, Block 5 took over all our phones, and so now we're all voice over IP, so we get one bill for all the phones, all the departments. It's like $9,000 something a year. I don't have the breakdown, so last year it was, all the phones were added into the computer maintenance line, but I've since been trying to break it out. That's why the telephone went up so high this year, because I'm taking it out of that maintenance line and putting it into telephone.
Okay, because I'm seeing phones and internet in other
They all have
departments.
them, because they all have internet, and they all have their cell phones / the iPads for like the ambulances. There's a bunch of equipment that have cellular service that the PD and fire need to have, so those all come out of their line items. So they will all still always have phone and internet.
They just want to make sure that if we're absorbing some stuff in their lines should be getting reduced appropriately.
It already did last, like, it's been reduced.
So did anybody sit down and go back and over a pad of paper and figure out what the total expenses were before, and what this process, we've gone through this process, what the total expenses the taxpayer would be after for phone and communications expenses?
For current year, you mean, or for prior?
Well, just in general, because every small and medium-sized business I know has cut their phone costs dramatically in the last several years. So I know it's confusing, and that you're moving, and you consolidate, it's hard to keep track and compare apples and oranges 2 or 3 years later, but do we have a sense of whether, in fact, phone expenses, what they've done, whether they've gone down, stayed the same, gone up?
I'll look, but I know our phones have gone down about $1,000 in some departments from the prior year. And that makes sense if we're paying $9,000 for all the phones.
Right.
So they've all gone down.
So Paul,
So I can talk to the departments about reducing their phone lines, expense accounts, if we need to. I can go over that with them.
Well,
I had the same question Anne Marie did, because I just jumped to highway, for instance, and they had telephone and internet increase. So I'm just confused if it's consolidated, why we're seeing increases in certain lines.
I don't do their budget, but I can talk to them, because they should have what the actual expenses are.
I'm curious if they're getting copies of their portion of the bill, if they're essentially adding that into their budget, not accounting for the fact that it's being paid out of our budget.
None of the departments get the Block 5 phone bill. Yeah. Because it's not in their budgets, it's just in this line, one line item. I pay one bill a month.
I just want to make sure we capture what we want to see. So we want to see when we started with Block 5, where our phone bills were then and where it is now, and to see if it has been taken out of each departmental budget. Is that correct?
Pretty much.
Yes.
All right, the next line is the town cable TV operations. We've had some money appropriated in those lines over the years, and it was spent at very low levels. And now we're finding a lot of failing equipment, and I think it's been a disservice to the town that we get that $60,000 a year from Comcast, and a lot of the money has not been utilized to maintain the communication infrastructure to make it available for people online and streaming. We were obviously down for a period of time due to some connectivity issues. So Adam has been advocating for some replacement of some things. We're seeing if we can purchase some of this through ARPA funding, but we're waiting on an estimate to come back on upgrading the HVAC and the front steps for the town building, and that's going to deplete the majority of the ARPA funding that is left. So we just wanted to make sure that we should be budgeting for our TV and cable operations, because people are definitely not happy when they can't have access to it or go back and see a recorded meeting. And finally, under the executive budget, our last one is town reports. And I think that's the cost of physically making and printing the town reports to have available.
Chris, can I go back for a second? I'm just curious.
Yep.
There's a trust funds report that I have, that there was capital reserve for cable TV equipment. There was $5,300 there. Do you know, it sounds appropriate for this line item, that trust fund would be applicable, no?
There it is, but there's from what I understand, there's a bunch of things that they need updating, so it's gonna be more than 5,000. So like they're using both, you know what I mean?
Could we get details as to what they're updating and the cost? Could we
try.
ask for that? Yeah. And if this report I'm staring at balance was 12/31/22, I'd like to know what the balance is today in that account as well.
You have one.
Oh, actually, you're right, you did give me.
It's the same. It's maybe some interest, but nothing has changed in there.
Paul, I'm reflecting on the phone. You know who can help you? Because that's a lot. I'm thinking from your perspective, she's got kind of a lot of work to do there. Block 5 should be able to help you with that. Kind of what I was thinking out loud about was this: before, in my world, before you go ahead and do stuff like that with a company like Block 5, you would get in advance, these are your current costs. This is what we're suggesting. This is what that's going to cost. These are going to be a cost afterward, in addition to which, and I think you alluded to it with public safety, you're going to get increased capacity in technology services, which shouldn't be underplayed. I mean, that's important, the ability of those vehicles to access that data. But I would think Block 5 could probably help you put that together.
I think it's also just a matter of me also, I can look up reports that we have from them.
Yeah, exactly.
And I could also print some reports on what actual expenses are for each section.
They just spread it, the expenses are spread all over.
They are.
So that's the struggle you have.
Just for the minutes, on 8/31, the balance of that cable TV fund is $5,491. $5,491.
All right, do we have any further discussion on the executive section before we move on?
Chris, I'm just curious more that I don't understand how the default budget necessarily works. So let's say the town voted this down. I'd assume the PFAS goes in the default budget. We're forced to do some of these things regardless, right?
Well, we will have to cut services somewhere else to handle that project, but we would still be eligible for grant I think we'd still,
The PFAS would go in there.
yeah, it would go in the default budget.
Do we have the default budget as of yet?
No.
We've asked to review that. No.
Yeah, there's been a lot of discussions back and forth with DRA and NHMA on what goes in the default, because it is incredibly confusing about what actually moves forward and applies and what doesn't.
Would you have a court order on that environmental issue?
I don't think we have a court order.
No, but we are mandated to do it, it would go in the default budget.
Right, exactly, yeah.
Okay.
If you've got some sort of.
Okay, perfect.
A judicial or regulatory mandate, they're not gonna let you cut that out.
No, that would go in the default budget.
Well, that's good. I mean, not good money-wise, but at least we're getting a grant. All right, where do we want to go next?
Like,
4150-08.
41.
second page.
Second page. Oh, there we go. Yes, financial administration. So assessing. This is a result of, so we were in a multi-year contract. It was a 5-year assessing contract, and it was not picked up by previous administration on the final year increase of the assessing year when everyone got their reassessment on their property values that they're super excited about. So they had budgeted for 5 years in a row for the $21,750, but the actual cost included an increase of about $63,000 that had to get added on that for the final year assessing. So part of the new contract that is going to be for assessing, we need to increase that line to $64,100, and this is part of a 5-year contract that we're required to do by the state. We're required to have assessing for the town.
So on the new contract, does it also go up on that 5th year, or is it gonna be 64,000 for 5 years?
Nope, it does, it goes up on the 5th year.
Not as significantly as this contract did. It seems like some of the costs are more evenly applied throughout the first 4 years, but yeah, if you could pull that up while we can move.
And we also have contract to assess our utilities, so like the, wherever like Unitil is leasing, you know, like the companies like that, they're assessing that, so that'll bring us money.
Yeah,
They just did it, so I don't know what.
Yeah.
And so, and I believe that contract went.
That's the.
Do you happen to remember
that's
that, Glenn or Susan, how much the San
It's
Souci
right
went?
there.
23,000?
It's listed right there.
Oh, okay, yeah. So yeah, that's 22,000 for the San Souci, but they were responsible for doing the utilities, and we will actually get some substantial tax increases from those assessments, which will definitely outweigh the cost of some of that assessing reporting.
Do you have any idea what we could expect the expense to be in the next budget year?
I think we should be budgeted appropriately at 64,000 based off of the contracts that we have. The previous year, it was missed that 5th year increase. And part of the problem is, and I've talked with Paula, is when we're doing budgeting Excel spreadsheets, it should be clearly stated. So in the sub information now, it says, hey, on this year, it automatically notifies people when they're preparing that budget, hey, there's a contractual increase in this budget that was, you know, entered 4 years ago, but you have to plan for this year. So, and because they just kept moving the same number over.
So you think 2025 will also be the $64,000 range?
It'll be, like, I know, it'll be like $1,000 more.
For the following year.
Yeah, in 2025.
2025.
Okay.
But at the end of the 5 years, it will.
There is an increase at the end of the 5th year.
98,000. For the 37,000 will be 98,000. So that 37,000 increases a little bit each year. And then the 5th year, it's gonna be 98,000.
And I know it may sound hard to believe based off of those numbers, but that was the cheapest assessing contract by a long shot.
You bid it?
What's that?
You put out the bid?
Yes, yep.
When will you have the numbers on how much they're saving us?
Oh, for Sam Susie? I don't know. Do you know, Susan?
Could we maybe come up with that at some point?
So when will those new utility bills go out?
They just did, right?
Yeah, I think the new utility ones just went
So,
out, so
I just have to look at
So-
the new bills.
Did they get the assessment along with the rest of us? Did they challenge them?
they. If they do challenge, the Sam Susie would be the ones that they would challenge it to, but, so what they're getting the tax bills now, so now if but if the assessment period for
So that's the insight, so they didn't appeal the assessment?
they didn't appeal the assessment.
Right, well, it's also, the answer to her question, which is the revenue.
Yeah, so if we could print out the current tax bills for the utility.
Right, so
Yeah.
we can print them out.
All right, what's next?
Audit, but that stayed the same, 16,000.
Yeah.
Treasurer's salary stays the same. And then legal expenses, I kept the same, That's line 4153 first.
Yep.
Just so, and then you're in personnel administration.
Personnel,
455.
yep, this is another large increase section, and a lot of these are gonna be out of our control. Criminal records checks, we did an increase from $700 to $800. Dental insurance is up 33%. And we have this, more employees are joining dental insurance, and rates went up by 4.7% in 2024. Disability insurance has gone up 56.25%. This was a rate change by the insurance company.
Yes. And based on people's salaries, so as salaries change, that changes.
So can you pause here for a moment? I'd like to understand the employee contribution on both dental and medical. So what's the offering to the employees in town?
So we have one dental insurance option. Like what percentage does the town pay? Is the town 80% and the employees are 20%?
So it depends. So if it's a single person for dental,
No. Normally,
we pay 100%. Let me explain.
okay.
If it's a single person for dental, we pay 100%.
Which is what? What is 100%?
So for 2024, it'll be $7,000, $7,168.
For one person?
For one
For
person
dental.
for the entire year. For dental, this is for dental.
Okay.
If it's two-person or family, then we pay 75% above the single plan cost. So the difference in the cost between going to a two-person and a family, the town will pay 75% of the difference between that 7,000 and whatever the change is.
Could you equate that to a,
The 100% of the 7,000.
Yes.
What's a family premium?
So family, the town,
No, what's the gross premium? You've explained how it breaks down. What's the gross premium? The gross premium for a single person is $7,000. So it's 25% of what?
I have to figure it out. Yeah, it's 20, the town would pay 20,000 for a family.
For dental?
insurance?
$20,000.
For criminal. No,
Can't be,
that
cannot
could
be.
be for health insurance.
Is our dental included with health?
Nope, that's a wrong map, I'm sorry. That's a wrong
I want
formula in there.
crowns.
Right, I want to sign up.
Open a dental insurance company.
I'll take a town job.
Are you hiring?
Yeah, what positions are open?
Building inspector?
Gosh,
Okay,
if selectmen get it, I'm gonna run for selectman. Selectmen get it.
I think,
Oh, I know what the 20 was, we have 13 employees, okay, so the annual cost per employee is $551 for a single. We pay $15.94 for a family per year.
So if it's a couple with no children, you get 2 single policies?
That's 930, the town pays $938.
How many of these,
I was reading the wrong column, I apologize.
how many of these benefits are were contractually obligated? That they came on board and we said, we're gonna pay 100% of your benefits? Or is this,
All of them for full-time, it's in the personnel manual.
but you can change the personnel manual if we said that they needed to pay 25% or something. I mean, is there any guarantee? It's not like it's a union. There's no forced requirement, is there?
You'll end up with unions.
That's actually an interesting question.
Right. I mean, most companies don't pay 100%. I know it's a municipality, blah, 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 but my point is 100% funded on medical or dental doesn't exist these days. So, you know, we're trying to save money for the taxpayers. You know, it's something we might have to think about.
It won't be this year because it's a big process, but it would be something that our committee would have to go through and the select board.
What committee?
We have a personnel, a benefits committee.
Okay, I don't even know anyone's name, but how is that committee composed?
Select board members, department heads, and employees.
Of taxpayers?
No, it's an internal, taxpayers
Chairman of the budget committee is not on there?
don't contribute to personnel.
But if you negotiate, but if we're talking about, I understand what you're saying, and I don't think that taxpayers should be involved in establishing working conditions for firefighters or people here at town hall, but on these economic issues that are a lot of money, I don't, you know.
Paul, I don't understand you start off by saying we pay $7,000 for dental.
I'm sorry, I was reading the last, there's 13 employees that take the single plan, so we pay $7,000 a year for those single, that was $551 times 13.
Oh, okay, so we pay 100% of that for
For a
each,
single person,
per single person.
yeah.
And how many people take advantage of the two-person, and what's that equate to for the town?
8 people, that's 7,507, and 13 people are on the family plan. It's our full-timers, it's 30, we have 35, 36
How
full-time,
many total in a dental plan?
34.
So I'm gonna have the same question about health. I don't mean to jump around, but I'd be intrigued to know how that breaks down in the contribution as well.
So, we have 2 plans for health insurance that people can choose from. We have, it's called Access Blue and Blue Choice. Access Blue is the higher deductible, and the town pays for a single person 100% of that, so that's $12,459 a year. And it's the same thing, 75% above the single plan cost. So it's the difference, 75% of the difference above the single plan cost.
And what about the Act Blue, the other choice?
That what?
The other plan?
So the Blue Choice?
Yes.
The town only pays $12,459 for a single person for that, like they won't.
So either one, they get into the choice, but that's what you pay, the 12, okay.
what if an employee's spouse has benefits through their separate employment and employees want to stay with their spouse's plan, do we contribute to that cost?
We give if they aren't using our insurance, they get a $2,000 a year insurance opt-out.
Regardless of whether it's medical or dental?
Yeah, no, just for medical.
What about dental?
They don't,
They don't?
no. If they're on our medical, then they don't get an opt-out for not using dental.
So if you were on the Access Blue in the family plan, what is their premium, what do they pay each paycheck?
Each paycheck,
Or annually, I don't, how do you break it down?
they pay, if they're on Access Blue Family, they pay $5,295.
In Blue Choice?
$13,000 for family, $13,542 the employee pays.
I won't put you on the spot for this, but I'd love a breakdown of this a little bit more to understand in depth who's on what plan and how the dollars add up. We talk a lot about COLA, pay for performance, but this is part of your benefits, right? So 100% funded medical, 100% funded dental, that all has to be taken into account.
It's not, the town's not,
Yes, for single person.
for a single, okay.
For the Access Blue, for the higher deductible.
They pay 100% of that for a single person?
Yes.
Wow, I didn't actually realize that.
I think that needs to be taken into account.
What's the deductible?
I'd have to look, I don't.
It's like, it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah, but one thing I brought up at the select board meeting, obviously there wasn't any time to do anything for open enrollment or look at changes this year, but I recommended one of the things the town should be looking at next year is offering a high deductible health plan insurance as well, because sometimes those can have tremendous cost savings to the town's portion, and in a lot of cases, the users, depending on how their family uses the health plan, they can actually realize a bunch of savings. I actually subscribe to a high deductible health plan, but part of the incentive to do that is that the county also offers an HSA, so they contribute partially to that HSA, but the county's probably saving $15,000 in premium by me not opting for, a higher plan, but they contribute about $3,000 in contributions to an HSA.
But even if they didn't, if the town offered a high deductible and then self-insured on the deductible, probably that would still save the town money, because not everybody's gonna hit the deductible. So, as a matter of fact, very few will, because relatively, they're healthy people that are working and so on and so forth. So
Correct.
you probably could self-insure that deductible and still do just fine.
Yeah.
When we
Yeah.
did the pay matrix, was that analyzed as well? In the pay matrix, did you look at benefits and how much each town contributed to dental, health, retirement?
It was not because of the amount of information and the time that we had to, like I said, I brought in that 90-something page report. Those companies that you pay hundreds of thousands of dollars, they factor in all that. A volunteer board with limited time.
It was hard enough to get the salaries from the towns. I mean, a lot of towns wouldn't even give
But we don't know if we compared apples to apples then, because if we're fully funding and another town isn't, then they're paying more. I mean, it's just another.
But it's, I mean, we could go down in this and we could look at health and dental, but I mean, the retirement is all the same because it's state mandated. But what we could look at is, it's very difficult to get salary information. I'm not sure which towns would share health information, and then particularly for each different employee, right? Or each different job description. So right now, we're just looking at salaries to just evaluate that.
And I can appreciate the challenge to the committee. I'm not trying to say that, it's just, this is part of your benefit.
Yeah.
So,
because for most contracts that I see on municipalities, you see a lot of 80-20 seems to be
Exactly.
a very common number. I'd say that's probably the most prominent number that I see. There are some few outliers. I think Salem pays 100% of health insurance for, I think, family and single, and obviously we do it for individuals, but not, they cover any costs, a percentage of the cost above that. But yeah, I'd say you seem to see more common of the 80-20 split.
So when we talk a full-time equivalent, then, you know, in private sector, you know, it's 35% loaded. What is it here? So when we're looking at an employee's salary, what is it, is a truly loaded employee, what percentage should we be tacking onto their salary to understand what they're making?
It depends on what department they're in, because retirement is calculated differently in all the departments. Oops, it depends on the department. So retirement is calculated differently. The town has to pay 7% for regular employees, 13, I don't remember off the top of my head. For police, it's 31.28%. Actually, for regular employees, the town pays 13.53%, and for fire, the town pays 30.35%. So it depends on which employee it is.
Does that include Social Security, Medicaid?
For the police and Social Security. So for the police and fire, it does.
Yeah.
For other employees, like myself, it does not include Social Security.
Can we make that ask as well then, that we get a breakdown what a fully loaded employee per department looks like?
Yep. Because it literally varies on the employee, so I couldn't just give you that.
Yep, no, that's why, if you could send it later, and just
Do
sticking
you
in
want
that.
an examples of, or do you want every single employee? And how hard is that to get? I don't
It
know.
seems like a lot.
What do you think?
Well, that's a lot. I'm just asking, we're
Yes,
asking for.
and the wants versus manageable, what's that
Oh, that's
spread?
what I'm at, because I think we can.
To get it at a time.
What? Yeah.
Can I ask what, I know, like, what is the purpose for that? Because we're gonna get it for the wage once we figure out the wages.
That's a fair question. So I am trying to visualize what an employee really costs. So when you do a warrant article and you ask me to approve 2 fire people as a resident of the town, what am I approving? I'm approving a salary, but all these other numbers go into it. So what is the total cost loaded for that body when you ask me to approve it? I don't know that we see that.
We've never seen that.
And I think we need to.
Yeah,
I think
and
that
when we did the
transparency
warrant
is
article
needed.
for the fire last year, that included all of these things.
It did, it was loaded, okay. I think I'll go.
It's 100 some odd thousand, I don't remember the exact amount off the top of my head.
So we can give examples for each department, because each department is different for percentage for retirement. Each person is different based on what they take, but we can base it off of a family plan. So we can say a fully loaded police officer with a family plan is this. So I think that might help.
Yeah, no, it would.
Because anybody could switch from a single to a family plan, depending on their personal requirements. So that would be the highest cost to the town, and I think that may help.
Yeah, no, I'm thinking, and I know we'll refocus, but, you know, the fire department's talking about per diem and on-call rates. They want 2 more bodies. Is raising those per diem and on-call rates make more sense when you look at a fully loaded body? I don't know, because I don't know what the loaded body is, so that's my ask to understand what the bodies are.
And I had I'm gonna have a conversation with the fire chief, because I think, his mind is, he wants to recommend to maintain the safety standards that are kind of set forth for certain numbers to roll certain apparatus. He feels it's his position to put forward what's most appropriate. I already know that, 2 more, we just got the 2 last year. I personally know that I wouldn't support an additional 2 more full-timers. I would rather him raise and increase those per diem and on-call rates to make it more enticing for those people to step up.
So I don't want to wrong, but this allows me to ask a more global question that's beginning to bother me, which is that you're chairman of the board of select, and you've just said you have real qualms about that particular item. So if the budget committee would have passed this budget with that in there, and approved the warrant article,
Well, and that's why if it comes as a warrant article, anyone can petition a warrant article. They can either petition it or submit it forward, but that's why we all get an opportunity to recommend or not recommend a warrant article. And if the only article that did not pass last year that had a cost item associated with it was the only one where there was a split vote. That is the only cost item that did not pass, and it was on the making the land use administrator full-time from part-time, and that was the only cost-associated article that I recall that did not pass, and it was the only one that did not have unanimous approval from both the budget committee and the select board, or recommendation.
So because it's a warrant article, when that discussion comes up in January, I guess would be,
Yep.
whatever it is after the holidays, you're inclined at this point.
I would not recommend it.
So, two things. First one is kind of back on the health insurance with the wage matrix, obviously to get every single number and every single value, but would it be possible for each town to ask yes or no questions? Do you fully fund all health insurance? If not, do you partially fully fund health insurance? Just a yes or no on each of the towns that we're comparing to?
And if you, so I think we could, but I don't know if we would get an answer, because depending on the town,
Right.
they may have different agreements for police, fire, and town employees. So it's not a straightforward yes or no answer.
Yeah.
We can go look at the 20 towns that we analyzed and try to get some of that information. Retirement is required by the state, so that's level funded. We don't,
Right.
you know.
But even having maybe 5 or 6 of the other towns as a comparison, would that be useful information?
I mean, the more information we have, the better, right? Because if one town isn't, if they're doing 80-20 and we're comparing our percentile to a town that's making the employees pay in, it does have a bearing on the way we view this data.
But, I mean, yeah, and we can look at it. I mean, we're guessing right now at what it is and where we've got the information and how difficult. I mean, it was hard to get even salary data, so we can take a look at what we can get for dental and health, and even if we can just get percentages of contribution, if they will even share some of that information. And not all of it is in their personnel, which may not be, their personnel manuals, which may not be public information. So we can try, but.
Okay. And then,
Having a hard time with the payments, you know, going out to other towns to see what they pay their employees, because we're not those towns. And if the past 5 years, all we've been doing is increasing salaries by a lot, and at some point, we're gonna have to actually look at where it's going. Otherwise, why don't we just raise them up 100% and get it over with? It's just constant. Every single year, it's been, we're not getting enough money, we're not getting enough money. At some point, we have to level off. So, which year are we gonna do that? I mean, there's been increases in the double digits for town employees, some even higher. So we need to decide that. If we're gonna keep going, I mean, it's to the point where we don't even know why we're here.
Well, at any point, you can say, guess what, we're not doing it, but we have to live with the consequences of that. And
We're not
like,
doing what?
we're done raising anything. We're done, you know, we're not even entertaining raises, we're not doing it. But like I've said it in the previous meetings, nobody anticipated the labor market we've seen. I don't have people lining up for any job. And there are some communities that have incredibly short staffing. So if people do leave, if we roll the dice on anything like that, we just have to understand what we're living without, because if there's not enough employees to do the services that townspeople expect, something's getting cut back.
so one of the things on the wage matrix of why last year, one of the reasons why I think as a committee we were so adamant about doing something like this was to make sure that we were raising the salaries somewhat evenly and not just over raising them on one department and then another department falls behind. And what we've seen with the wage matrix is that is exactly what has happened, that we have one department that is much lower. And as a taxpayer a townsperson, that's what I don't want to see happen.
But there was a rational explanation as to why the department is up in the 90s.
I was talking about the one that's low.
No, I know
Yeah.
that, but and to be fair, and I've had very civilized disagreements with the police chief, but he's articulated for 2 years what his goal was, how he was trying to get there, and where he wanted to go. And he came in with these proposals, and when all is said and done, where is it? At 50. So that, which to me is a telling
It means that
argument
math
in
works
favor
when you
of what-
actually analyze
in favor
numbers.
of what he was doing and what he was trying to do.
And I think our town was very fortunate to have some long-standing, tenured department heads of our 3 major departments here for decades, but a lot of people got caught up in that old mentality, we've made it work, we've made it work, we've made it work. And then back in the day, nobody was giving up municipal jobs. There was waiting lists to get into a fire department full-time, no matter how low paid it was to get your foot in the door. Those days are gone. We used to, when the Great Bay used to do the testing for police applicants, we'd show up and there'd be 300 or 400 people there. Might have a couple dozen.
When I went to law school nights, back in the late 70s, there were 7 firefighters in my class. They were firefighters who wanted to be, that was the thought process back then. And that's no longer the case.
We aren't gonna solve this
Yeah.
tonight here. I don't think.
No. So the second thing that I wanted to bring up was Chuck just texted me and said, the pizza's getting cold. Do you want to take a break?
Is pizza?
So I guess he's watching. Hi, Chuck.
I'd just like to make one more comment, I'll get
Yeah.
off the matrix. I can't help but think I saw a plan stepped out 7 years, right? And we saw numbers in their salary lines. I'm still hung up that there's other financial impacts, so I want to understand how that impacts the budget each year. If we guarantee employees raises for 7 years, show me what that does to benefits. What is the overall package that increase represents? Because it's not that $27 at the line item, it's bigger.
I wouldn't be able to show you because the rates change every year.
Yeah, but we have to have some baseline.
So I wouldn't know
There's
what
an average, though.
7 years, what health insurance is gonna be,
But
what,
if it stayed as it is today.
I could do that, but.
Yeah, I think if we just calculated the percentage of the add-on benefits, retirement, based off of what the final, hourly rate is, I think we can at least get a ballpark.
Right, we
And
need to
knowing
see
that we're still subject to small
The
line.
totality of
Yeah.
it, because if you're just looking at a salary line, you're missing whatever this loaded employee that I can't seem to get to is.
So there's a couple of ways that we can show that. We can try to break down the retirement and the health and dental and put it in under each department so that you can see each departmental, because that might be easier for us. And then we still will try to get you a fully loaded rate of
Yeah,
what the
that's right,
person is. Yep.
understanding the caveat is it's gonna change year to year,
Yeah.
but we need something to be
And
analyzing.
I think that we focused on salaries, but then when you're talking about some of the comparison of fully loaded, we like that also, because when we had a department looking at private industry, those rates are not fully loaded, and those, the fully loaded rate of a union employee is much higher than a fully loaded rate would be non-union.
Or I think you said you looked at a couple of private businesses too, funding a retirement, more than likely they're doing a 401k with an employee contribution,
Well,
so.
But
that's
construction
all.
works a little differently because of the prevailing wage laws and the union and prevailing wage laws. So what happens when you're prevailing wage, you get your salary, but you don't get benefits. And that's where it differs, depending on the thing. But I have all that information, so we can take a look at that.
Okay, let's do a short break. There's pizza, there's salad, I think there's drinks in the bag. Chuck ordered.
Thanks, Chuck.
I brought some for Chuck.
What's that?
Can you push the green button on that microphone? Make it turn red, just because we're on recess.
Tap on it.
All right, tap, tap, tap. Well, all right, so we can come back to meeting.
Okay, so I'll jump right back into it. Under the personnel administration, amidst all those required increases, either through retirement, social security, insurance, we do not have funded in here the paper performance, so that line is a reduction. As of right now, there is money still in there because there are some contracts that have contractual increases that are outside of paper performance, so those have to be funded in there. And that's really it for the personal administration line. Like I said, a lot of these are out of our control, and they're set by the different insurance companies and retirement system.
What did you mean by they're outside of pay for performance, if they're in the line for pay for performance?
They're paid out of pay that's where they funded those items based off of some of those contracts. It was essentially a guaranteed pay raise within those, but they were funded under the pay for performance line.
If you'd like, I can put them into their budget lines. It was just on their contract as pay for performance.
Yeah,
so.
it stated it was pay performance in their contracts.
So we've already taken out the pay for performance.
Correct. So if there's no more questions under personal administration, we can move to
Insurance.
Insurance. So liability insurance, we have an increase of 9%. This was given to us by Primex, so it's going from $75,493 to $82,287, and the deductible is going from $4,000 to $5,500. We did overexpend the $4,000 this year, so we're budgeting a little bit more, and it all depends on claims that are submitted. We have regional association dues. This is part of the Rockingham Planning Commission. This is our participation in that organization. They do a lot of assistance and work with the town, including the planning board, over a bunch of different items. Glenn is heavily involved with some of the committees that result as a part of the Rockingham Planning Commission.
And then other general government.
Yep, other general government. So here's a line, the budget committees, we put in NHMA suggestion is that we should have a contingency fund that is equal to 1% of our budget. We have previously not needed a lot of those contingency funds as budgeted, so we just wanted to put in the number that NHMA suggested, but if this is a line that the budget committee wants to level fund, I don't think there'd be any objections to that, so that would give us an opportunity to reduce $39,677.65 out of the increase out of that line. But based off of a lot of the things that have happened this year for things that have come up, we definitely need a contingency fund, so I would not advocate for going below that budgeted $50,000 just in case something comes up. All we are is one major lawsuit to overspend, legal expenses or some other line somewhere else.
So do we make that now?
Well, we can take that under. So we had some things over budget this year. Have we used the contingency plan to pay any of those things, or did the departmental budgets absorb those?
We're not sure yet because we're waiting.
We're still hashing that out because there's some bills that only get paid quarterly, so we were trying to figure that, but we will be using some of these contingency funds that are in there. Guaranteed we will be using more of those contingency funds as we finish off the year for some of these shortfalls that happen. As everyone knows, we had several of them.
Okay. On the gasoline line, is that through the first 2 quarters or is that 3 quarters?
3 quarters.
Did the third quarter bill come in yet?
I just got it. I believe that's in this number, 56,000.
Okay.
And
That one won't go over then.
And it depends, it depends on how much they fill up the gas, like.
I think that we had a fairly mild winter on the first part of the year, which when you're fueling all those heavy plow trucks and all the other equipment that goes with it.
Right, my question was,
So
if it was
I
only
think
through 2 quarters, we were gonna be way over.
Yes, so
Yeah, no, that's
luckily we
3
won't be
quarters.
going over on gasoline, but I think we may end up, not expending all the gasoline budget this year, depending on, unless we have any crazy snowstorms prior to the first of the year, but we got off pretty easy last winter. And then physicals, this was due to an increase to some specialized physicals that some of the fire department employees require. These physicals cost anywhere from $1,300 to $1,600 a piece. So we needed to make sure some of those physicals were budgeted for some of those higher employees that have special licenses and certifications. Where are we going next, Paula?
240.
Town inspectors. So under the salary full-time, the only full-time position was the full-time code enforcement building inspector position. We had, you'll notice only $50,000 has been spent out of that. The select board made a conscious decision due to other budget shortfalls to not hire that position full-time for the remainder of this budget year to save that money. We had somebody in town step up to be the part-time building inspector because they showed up here to get a building permit one day and we told them we didn't have a building inspector. So they ended up stepping up to take on that position. They are not interested in it being full-time. They make too much money in the private sector. So we have but the select board has posted that position. We do have applicants and they are in the hiring process. Our goal was to have them start back up the first of the year, but the board made a consensus that we were not willing to hire at the rates that was previously set. So we do have a reduction. So the total salary for that line before was $104,000 where it was at after some contractual raises. And the board has set parameters where we're only going to be willing to hire between $65,000 and $85,000 for that position based off of experience. So full-time.
This amount equates to what was in the warrant article when it was approved, was it 2 years ago?
With necessary cost increases, and we came up with that number based off of studying other communities that are hiring for a similar position that is full-time code enforcement and building inspector. We were absolutely, that position at $104,000 was way above the market for every municipality.
Well, the guy that was there was just milking it, I thought. I thought it was terrible, Jess, whoever it was, but I know he finally quit, but unless you get somebody that's like either retired that knows what they're doing, somebody that's in the trades right now, I mean, you can't find people to do things, so you're gonna...
That is correct. There are some difficulties to there too. If you get, you can't get if you have somebody that was a town employee, say they were building inspector and they retired from another town, now they're limited on the hours that they can work, so they can't work full-time for another town if they're in the state retirement system, because they're limited on the amount of hours they can work annually. Absolutely, we would, so it's, I think still, for somebody that has the experience to the benefits that come with full-time at $85,000 a year, especially if they're collecting retirement or they have investments from somewhere else, I think it'd be a appropriate situation, but just the board wasn't willing to,
Is there an ability to get an exemption? Not a match, you can get an exemption. You know what I mean, to get around that retirement?
No, not in the state of New Hampshire. The only exception that allowed for it was during the state of emergency declaration during COVID-19. They suspended the limitation on hours, but other than that, there's no provisions to get around it.
Another question on the code enforcement officer. I remember this being discussed in the budget a few years back that they would actually end up paying for themselves. So do we know by enforcing the code how much money they brought in and if that was a true statement that was made?
I think that is the biggest line of BS you ever heard.
Okay.
Because to say that they're gonna, because for every enforcement action you take, once it comes to the point where you really have to enforce it, you're going to incur legal fees. And any fines that you end up getting assessed probably aren't even going to offset the amount you had to spend on the lawyers to get the money out of that action. That's my personal opinion on it, but I have seen no proof. The inspector stuff is more of a wash, but the code enforcement, code enforcement, I don't believe will ever pay for itself because of the mechanisms you have to go through to actually get to the point where you're receiving funds. Because let's face it, the folks that don't comply with cease and desist and code enforcements are generally the ones that you're gonna have to take to court.
And unfortunately,
But that's what we were told.
unfortunately, over the years, Kingston's developed a reputation of not enforcing. So
Yes, they have.
now, it's almost like we're gonna enforce with a wink. And so if we actually had the reputation, Kingston enforces their stuff, people probably would start complying better.
I think we sent out 2 or 3 cease or desist letters this week and notified the attorney that we'll be
okay.
pursuing them if there's no compliance, so.
Okay, great. That's the way to do it. Yeah.
And I think a big part of that too is during last year's vote, we cleaned up a lot of language. A lot of our fine schedules, the language was not very enforceable and beneficial to the town when we had to go down that road. So we took a lot of steps through the planning board, and I know the select board, they changed a lot of how the language was written to make fines enforceable. So we have a reduction in that line, just the 3.85% increases for the salaries under the part-time. So those are our part-time inspectors, which include our electrical, mechanical, health. Health is under a different one. Plumbing. Yep. Let's see. So no really other substantial changes within this category. Under, where are we going next?
Health, 4411.
That's the next 2 pages. Yep, so health department, salaries part-time, didn't have any increases there, just the cost of living, so there's an increase in that. This is just a part-time health officer. We do have, we didn't spend as much for the contract for mosquito spraying this year, and I think that was due to the weather pattern that we had. It was so rainy during the first half of the season, so I think that affected our needs. So, but traditionally in the past, we have spent very close to that $34,000. So I would not recommend reducing that. And it's part of the contract where they can go up to that. So we need to account for it.
Could I ask a question? We have a contract that you have to pay people on, or they can spray?
No, we only paid 22,000 this year.
Yeah, so we ended up, because, like I said, because I don't think they didn't need as much treatment due to the weather, so we actually saved money, but they are contracted, so if they need to, they will spend up to that.
But they won't go over that. No, they shouldn't. I could read the contract.
Where are we going now? What's the next one for us?
The water analysis we dropped. Oops. The water analysis we dropped because we combined, that's all part of the PFAS stuff. So we dropped that because we do still test, we still do have to test certain town buildings.
Yeah, we spent way over it this year.
The library, because their water supplies those 2 buildings. But otherwise, I took the amounts for the water testing that we will still have to do once the PFAS goes through and put it under, I put everything for PFAS in one place under that contracted services line.
And yep, then you can see under water bottle delivery to PFAS residents, we expended about $4,000 over that line. So water bottle delivery, and my understanding is when the town secured that contract, it was very difficult because nobody was really interested in delivering bottled water. But we do have to account for some because until we understand when those POET systems are going to be installed and completed for those folks, we need to account for funds to continue water bottle delivery until those systems are installed.
And patriotic purposes, 4583. We increased from 200 to 500. We didn't spend any this year, but I know that there's been talk about putting, I think it's called bunting I don't know.
There was
On
bunting
some of the
bunting on
windows here at the town
bandstand
hall.
and the town
And the
hall.
bandstand, and then also, what was it, a volunteer memorial. So I honestly don't know what to put in there, but that's why I increased it a little
We were looking
bit.
at putting together some type of volunteer memorial, because after a meeting where we had somebody that wanted to rename a street, but we wanted to stick with the tradition of it being for fallen service members, and we discussed with them that maybe the town should be looking at doing a memorial that we could add names to throughout the years for outstanding volunteers to our town.
And then the last two things is just our bond, principal and interest, which we have on an amortization schedule, so those are it's the very bottom line.
So I anticipate a very smooth budget and voting season. There's nobody been upset on social media about tax bills, and everyone just seems very happy.
What? We thought they'd be here with pitchforks tonight.
I want whatever assessment you had. It must have been better than mine.
Joe? Thank you.
Thank you.
So the next thing on the agenda is reviewing anything from Wednesday night's meeting in the wage matrix. No. Just if we had any questions or anything. Any questions from?
I think
the
we were
last
waiting
meeting?
to see the data for our questions. Do we have an idea?
Oh, I had so many meetings last week that I needed to get my weekly stuff done, so I'll get it within the next day or so. Yep.
And then the next thing on the agenda is preparing, our next meeting right now is scheduled for December 13th. And that is the only meeting that we have scheduled from now until decision day. So December 13th is an update on the wage matrix, and then also any final determinations that we want to make for the budget. So I know we've put a lot of recommendations into the budget. Is that one day enough to go through those? Do you want to just, on that day, go through them, put each one to a vote?
That's a great question, but because I think, obviously, it seems like when there is a question on something, everybody kind of weighs in on it, so it takes a long time to go through those. So I think, I don't know if one night we'll be able to do that. If we're talking about gonna do a wage matrix thing and that's a lot to try to fit into a night.
I'd agree. I think each topic probably is going to take a lot of our brain power to give it the attention it deserves. I wouldn't be opposed to doing another meeting to make sure we had the time to cover everything.
I'm just gonna pull up the calendar. So this week is Thanksgiving. The 13th, if we go the following week, we're right into Christmas and then New Year's. So we have the 13th, what's the 6th? Possibly Wednesday the 6th. Another date would be the 10th, would be a Sunday, but then we're into a weekend during the holiday season.
The 29th, November 29th, the Wednesday after Thanksgiving.
I cannot do that date, but I'm only one person on the committee, so. Yeah, we could do other nights. The 28th would be a Tuesday.
You mean after Christmas?
I think we were talking November 28th.
Yeah, they said there's no planning.
That's Tuesday.
That's this Tuesday, yeah.
No,
No.
A week
not-
from
It's a
Tuesday.
week from this coming.
Right.
Does that,
When?
November 28th, it's a Tuesday?
Not on Thursday of that week. So,
That week, I could not do Wednesday or Thursday, but like I said, one person. I have Chamber Children's Fund events in Exeter,
oh, nice.
volunteering.
What about Sunday, the 3rd?
All right, so we do what kind of raise of hands? Is what? 20th, we could do 6 or 7.
You said you can't be here on the 28th.
I can do the 28th.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. 28th?
28th is earlier, 6 p.m. 6 p.m. Yes, because we don't want to be out till 9.
What time is on the 13th?
The 13th, I think it's 6. Default budget was December 13th. Try for that.
Can we, yeah, can we, the 28th, maybe we could get
November 28th.
possibly some kind of a ballpark on the default?
I just have to put it together. I thought I had till December, whatever you said.
The 13th, yeah, because we just added this meeting.
So I
Okay,
can try to get it before that, but I know I can't get it for next week.
okay, okay.
the next meeting.
Going through each department and so what we've done is we've gone through each department, we've highlighted different line items that we wanted to take another look at. So we're gonna go through the budget, through all of those highlighted items, and then take votes on whether to keep it the way it is or make changes.
And what time is that gonna be?
7 p.m. on November 28th. 6 p.m., sorry, 6 p.m., I wrote down 7. That's why it's good to repeat stuff. 6 p.m.
Trish, and forgive me, I wasn't on the budget committee last year, so I'm not as familiar with the way it's being done now. In the past, we made these decisions while the people were at the table. So now we as a committee are making the decisions, and then the decision goes back to the department? I don't understand the process, I guess.
So we could do it either way. If there's a question for a department, it could go back to the department. Last year, there were some departments that we asked to come back, but depending on what the motions are, it could just be, that we're, telling this department that we're going to change their bottom line funding from, reducing it by $10,000. And then it's up to that department to figure out where that $10,000 would go, or where it would come from. Any questions, comments? Okay. I think that's the last thing on the agenda for tonight. So we've got our next meeting set up. Great. And motion to adjourn by anyone?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, second.
Second, anyone?
And all in favor? Any opposed?